So what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline the top features to you verbally here, and then we're just going to watch short little snippets from some of the other content creators and from myself of the main features. And then we'll come back. So it'll be an iterative process where we jump in and out of short little video clips. So as I'm dropping them in my mind, the biggest thing in Camtasia 2022 for us content creators is they've introduced a new metaphor for us to edit our videos. Instead of just timeline-based editing, we now have the ability to edit our videos based on text. They go through and they transcribe the text, the video into text, and then we edit it in a word processing like environment. And it's a big change. It's cool technology to look at. But what's really important for us is how we figure out how to fold that new technique into our own production sequence, into our own production process. And I'm not there yet. I still haven't figured out how. I still don't say, I know exactly and I can see exactly how my video flow is going to be. I'm not sure if any of the other people are ahead of the game as far as that goes. But I know that I could tell right away that there's going to be some really nice benefits, some nice time benefits and savings of time in creating our video. Now, so I'll be showing you that. That's one of the first things we're going to show you. But they've also added so many new libraries, all of these great new assets that will allow us to dress up our videos and to explain what's happening on screen in far better ways than we could before. We now have a lot more control over what happens on the screen as far as the cursor. The cursor is such an important part. Where you're pointing on the screen is such an important part of telling any story when you're doing screencasting. And now we have control over where the cursor goes and how big it is and how it looks. There are new device frames, which allow us to, which is going to be great, especially for those of us that are starting to delve into other platforms than, say, YouTube. You're a TikTok creator or an Instagram stories creator, being able to edit your videos in Camtasia and be happier with the output that you're going to be publishing on those platforms. And there's a new homepage. So those are kind of the top level. And there's also quite a few new transitions, and it's a new cinematic effects. Now, I don't make very cinematic type videos, so I didn't spend as much time looking at those, but people who want to do more artistic type video, they also have a variety of new tools that excites them a lot. And playing with them, I can see why they're excited about it. So that's a lot. I think we should start and dive right in. The first video we're going to take a look at, and this is the longest clip. This is about 10 minutes long. This is me explaining text-based video editing. So if you've viewed my video, you're going to be seeing it again because of this. I've just lifted this from our video, but we're going to take a look at it, and April and I will be in chat, and we will see you all on the other side of this introduction to text-based video editing. But we're going to begin with something which is also brand new, and that is the new text-based editing capabilities that is built into Camtasia. Actually, it's a combination of Camtasia and TechSmith's audio editing tool called Audiate, which is a text-based audio editing tool which podcasters have been using for quite some time. But now we see an integration coming across, and this is a little bit challenging to showcase, because this is really the first case in my life where we're going to be taking a look at how we create video, how we edit video, and we're going to be moving away from a timeline-based editor as our main editing, looking at the waveform of audio and the video and doing visual editing. And instead, we are going to look at being able to edit video based on the words that are spoken, based on the text, and being able to do edits where you trim information out, where you remove pauses and you remove ums and ahs, and that sort of almost podcast type editing. But we're going to be doing it to video, and the results are going to carry back through to the video track. It's very exciting, and it's a little bit complex. And the biggest thing, though, is it requires us to reevaluate or to reimagine how we edit video for this sort of content creation. And I got to tell you, I've been doing this for a little while now, and I'm not there yet. I haven't figured out exactly what the workflow is. I know that there's going to be a great workflow that comes out of it. I'm excited about what it brings to the table, and just figuring out how we're going to leverage it. That's going to be an exciting thing that we're going to be looking at over the next couple of months as we dive into this technology more. But enough of that. Let's take a look at how it all works. So here's the basic concept for how text-based video editing works. We record our video and import our video into Camtasia, into our video editing package as per normal. We can do screencast recording, we can import video from a variety of different sources, and then we can start to edit it on the timeline. But once we put it on the timeline, instead of doing our normal editing where we're highlighting areas of the video and we're trimming and we're adding transitions and we're scaling the size of graphics and images within it, instead of that sort of timeline-based editing, what we can do is we can lock the timeline in place. We can lock the video in place inside of Camtasia, and we can export the video file that we're working on, or the video segment that we're working on, the timeline that we're working on. We can export that into Audiate, TechSmith's text-based audio editing tool. And once it's locked in Camtasia, it then is brought into Audiate, where Audiate, first of all, transcribes the video so that we can see the text, we can see what's spoken in the video. And then we have an interactive editor, much like a word processor, where we can highlight text, we can delete it, we can remove pauses, we can chop up the video and edit it down for length and for content. Then when we save it, it will re-export those edits back onto our timeline, and all of the video that's accompanying those audio edits will be truncated and will be chopped accordingly. So we can take a large rambling video and we can edit it for brevity and for clarity, re-export it back into TechSmith, and now we've got basically a rough cut edit of our video done for us, and from there we can start adding polishing treatment to it. Let me show you how it all works. Okay, let's get started with text-based video editing. Now, in order to make this work, you need two pieces. You need to have TechSmith's Camtasia 2022, and you need TechSmith's audio editing tool. You need access to a license to Audiate, and details for that will be in the description below. But if you have both of those available to you, then you can follow this particular process. Now, the video editing inside of Camtasia feels the exact same. Here is Camtasia 2022, and any users of Camtasia will look at the screen and go, "Oh, it doesn't look very different, Steve." That's because it looks pretty much identical. All of the new features are kind of hidden inside of different menus. But let's get started. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a quick little demo. Watch. It's a minute long, but you'll see there's a variety of different mistakes in it that you're going to want to edit out. So let's have a quick boo. So here we see the new Gmail. So here we see the new Gmail interface. We've got a new sidebar down the side, which gives us full access to chat, to Spaces, to Google Meet. We've got our inbox, which has access to all of our normal Gmail functions. And then we've got the sidebar at the right-hand side, which will allow under Google Keep, we can jump in and access our account immediately from this menu. Now, you can also add other applications through the Google, what's it called? Now, you can also add, okay, I'm going to pause it now here. There it is. So typically speaking, this is how I end up recording a demo, is I blast away through the content and I forget the name of something partway through, and I have to kind of pause and remember it. Now, I could either edit this just on the timeline, where I could trim it up and I could make myself sound a little bit more intelligent. I could have stopped and re-recorded the whole thing, which I probably would have done. Frankly, this is a bit of a lame demo, but it's typical of what happens. You make a little bobble, you make a mistake, you repeat yourself, you say something, you have a slight hesitation, and that's typically what happens when you're recording video, and we want to clean up that in editing. Now, in traditional editing, I would go through and I would look at this waveform and I would look at the video and I would highlight different areas and I would trim the video and cut the video and I would chop and dice. But I have to listen to each segment, then determine where the mistake was made and determine exactly what it is I want to edit out. So if I just want to edit out a stumble of a word, I have to isolate that exact word here in the waveform before I can edit it out. So it's a laborious process. It's one that we're very comfortable with. We do it all the time, and it's second nature to anybody who's editing video. But it is a time-consuming process. All of that changes when we take a look at text-based audio editing. So here's the process. I'm going to take the audio line here. Now, this is a minute worth of audio. I'm going to right-click my mouse, and when I right-click my mouse, I've got this new option in TechSmith Camtasia 2022. Edit in Audiate. I click on that, and now a process happens. First of all, that Camtasia is going to save the existing file of Camtasia that I'm working on, because what happens is we can only have one file that we're editing, or one instance that we're editing. So they're going to lock down Camtasia so that I can't accidentally jump into Camtasia and edit it. They're going to take this video file now, and they're going to import it into Audiate, and you can see Audiate is right now going through and it's transcribing the words that I said into an editable interface. And anybody who's edited a podcast through text-based audio editing will recognize this. If you haven't done that yet, this will be brand new to you, but this is basically a word processing for audio. Once we've imported the video or the audio script here into Audiate, I can highlight it just like I would with a word processor, and I can delete, I can cut, I can find dead air space, and I can delete that. I can go through and I can edit this as though it was a word processor. So we'll take a look right at the beginning. You can see here. So we see here the new Gmail. So we see here the new Gmail interface. Yeah. So what I did is I started over again and I repeated myself. And you see this one here? This is a hesitation. You can listen to anything just by clicking on it and listening. It's right? So I can just delete that if I wanted. So you just highlight it here. You can click on it and you can just delete it. And now if we listen to the whole thing, the will be gone. Gmail. So here we see now there's a slight pause between the two as well. And so you can go through and you can find those little dead air spaces and close them down as well. But in this particular case, I repeated myself twice. Here we see the new email. Here we see the new Gmail. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take and I'm going to edit all of that out. Oops, grab there. I'm going to edit all of that out and hit delete. And now we're going to start right with this part here. Here we see the new Gmail interface. Now, when I clicked on it, I accidentally opened up the timeline, the visual editor as well. So we can actually see the waveform editor as well. And you can edit either in text in this particular instance, or you can also edit down in the waveform. You can click inside of the waveform editor, right click your mouse, and that will bring you up an editing window, which will allow you to trim. And so if you want to cut out any of the audio kind of in a traditional mode, you can do this here as well. And I can just delete that and I've tightened that up. Now, the key here though, to recognize is while I'm doing this editing just on the audio, the file is reflecting all of my changes back in the original video file. So when I'm finished this, and I export this file back into Camtasia, all of these edits are going to be in the video track, not just in the audio track of the video. Does that make sense? So in other words, I'm actually editing the video here as we go. Now they've got actually quite a few really very cool tools here. We can see that it'll go through and it will find hesitations and it will silence hesitation. So when you have little pauses, etc., in your delivery, it will find those and it will tighten things up. But more importantly is kind of this broad scale editing. So if you remember, as I read through it, there's this whole area here where actually we can listen to it. Google Keep, we can jump into and access our account immediately from this menu. Now, you can also add, see, I had a long pause. You can also add other, and then remember I made the mistake and then I had this long pause while I couldn't remember the name. And then I picked it up here again. You can also add, so this here, I can take this and highlight this all the way up to here, and I'll delete that. And let's listen. Menu. Now, you can also add other applications through the Google Workplace Marketplace, which gives you, okay, so that's perfect. So now what we've done is we've taken that 1 minute video and we've edited it down to 39 seconds because of the mistakes that I made in the pauses and my repeating myself. Once you've edited, and this could be an hour video, this doesn't have to be just a little 1 minute clip. That's just so that I can show it to you here in a reasonable amount of time. Once that's done, we click here on export and the magic begins. Export to Camtasia. Now it's going to ask us if we want to edit the video that's on the timeline because it's non-destructive editing. So we can either edit the video that's on the timeline or we can edit the source video, the source media that's in our library. I'm going to edit it on the timeline, export it, save, and now Audiate saves this file because again, we can only have one file. So we're going to save this file. And then it is going to export this output back into Camtasia, unlock Camtasia. And now when we look at this file here, you see these stitches. This is where trimming occurred. So now if we just watch the last little bit, this when I really made the mistake here, if we watch that here, this menu. Now you can also add other applications. Now, this is non-destructive editing. We can go back, we can change it, we can undo it, we can unstitch it so that we could actually recover a little piece of it inside. It's, as I say, I'm really still getting my head around all of the different ways that you can use this as a workflow, but I'm excited about it. This could be a real game changer as far as how much time it takes us to edit video. So there we have it. Isn't that it? That's just its trick. It's just an amazing feature. I'll just deal with a couple of the. We're going to jump into the questions. You have to recognize that if you are editing a video in Camtasia for production, the type that we're doing for YouTube, say, in these sorts of videos, it's not just the chopped up edit. We're doing a lot of other treatments to it. So this is only going to be one step in the editing process. Typically speaking, when I edit a video, I record the video. I do what's called a rough cut, or I call it rough cuts. Other people call it first pass. But I build the narrative of the video, and I cut it into kind of big chunks where each piece is in place. This is going to be a dream for creating that first cut. Then I go through and I start adding treatments to it. Depending on the type of video, I might be editing out pauses. I might be, and we're starting to add B-roll, and we're doing all those other things to it. So I believe that this text-based editing is going to be at the front end of our editing process, not at the back end of our editing process. But as I say, I haven't done it a lot yet. So we're still kind of on the cusp of learning. So let's jump into some of the questions. We'll bang through them as quickly as possible.
Can I add captioning to the video?
Yeah. And you in the descript or the Audiate text can be exported as a file, so it can be imported for a closed caption or anything like that.
I saw an export button. Can we export the text for us in SEO?
Yeah, it'll export whatever the text is. Yeah.
Can this be used on video created using any software?
No. Well, just a minute. The video source, you can record the video on your phone, on a camera, and once you've imported it into Camtasia, you can start this process. So so any video can work, but it doesn't work with other video editing packages.
Audiate is expensive. Do they offer a bundle?
Yeah, they usually have license bundles. I'm not too sure exactly what all the pricing is, and it's different for different regions, but you can usually buy packages. I'm not positive what the deal is right now with Camtasia.
All right. For people who are not frequent users, my understanding is that we can sign up for Audiate for 1 month, then delete it, and then sign up again when we need it again. Much, much less expensive. Am I correct?
Yeah, I don't know, Sandy. You might be correct, but here's the thing about that. If you are using it once a month, this is not the solution for you. Because in order to get any sort of technical expertise at editing video and producing video like this, you have to be doing it a lot. So if you're looking for a cheap solution or an inexpensive solution, this is not the answer. This is for people who are serious about creating quality video as effectively as possible. And the very nature of that means that we're creating a lot of video. So consequently, anybody who is doing that is going to be happy to pay the license fee. It's expensive, yeah. Camtasia license, you're looking at $600 a year or so for the two, depending on package deals, etc. But if as far as I'm concerned, for creating videos for my channel, that's money well spent if I'm in this sort of a production environment. So it's not designed for the hobbyist. It's designed for people who are fairly serious about the video production space.
I'm a YouTube creator and have been using iMovie on my Mac for editing my videos. What would you say would be the advantages of me moving to Camtasia?
Camtasia is a screencasting tool. So doing screen recordings, incorporating the screen as a character in your videos you're going to be miles and miles ahead using Camtasia. You'll see some of the other features that we're going to be talking about that Camtasia brings to the table that make even regular videos, I think, make it a viable alternative to iMovie, but it will cost money. iMovie does a great job, but it's, again, a hobbyist tool, whereas Camtasia, a lot of very serious and professional content creators rely on Camtasia. I don't know very many full-time content creators that use iMovie.
Will it work with old videos?
Yeah. You just have to import the old video into Camtasia 2022. Once it's in Camtasia 2022, it'll be imported as a track. Then you can work with it.
Are you still using Hindenburg for your audio editing?
No. Well, I'm not doing a podcast anymore. At this point, we're kind of in hiatus. I keep saying I'm in hiatus. But if I was doing the podcast again, I like Hindenburg a lot, but I'd be tempted to use Audiate now.
Having stated Camtasia is not for a casual user, what do you recommend for the casual user?
I didn't say Camtasia wasn't for the casual user. I'm saying that the idea of incorporating on a kind of case-by-case basis audiate by signing up for a free license, using it for the period of time of the free trial, and not using it. I'm saying that's probably unwieldy. Casually, if you don't require the editing capabilities of Camtasia and you want to save some money, but you still want to be able to do this, I think that it's Snagit, the kind of the junior version of Camtasia that will allow you to do basic editing, but not in the fancy treatments that we do, is a good option. But then if screencasting is not your thing, and you don't need to have screencasting, then almost any video editing tool, Filmora or any of the others, would be a great choice. So it depends what casual is. Is it worth $300 a year to you to have a tool that does the things that Camtasia does? That's a call kind of that you have to make yourself.
What happens to the actual video when you delete, say, an entire sentence and audiate? Seems like it would have to make the video very choppy. What happens?
Well, it just doesn't. It's as though you do a ripple delete in the video. So when you're editing a video, we often use a technique called a ripple delete, which basically takes the last frame where your cut begins and the first frame where your cut ends, and it just deletes everything in between. And you might think it's choppy, but it, typically speaking, doesn't make videos look very choppy. It's I do it all the time. All my videos have dozens of those cuts in it, and you don't notice it being particularly choppy. As far as the technical, as far as kind of the where the rubber meets the road, you'll see a stitch, like a little squiggly line in the video where that chop happened. And if it's too aggressive and you want a few more frames one way or the other, it's non-destructive editing. So you can always undo that delete and then readjust it and then do it again. So the next thing I want to show is I want to show you the cursor animations. So my friend Nick Nimmin, he did a nice little job of this. You can just keep your video up now.
The first thing I want to bring to your attention inside of Camtasia 2022 that is really cool is that you can now add a cursor to anything, even a video file. Check this out. I'm going to go over to Cursor Effects, and I'm going to click on Cursor Path. I'm just going to pull that down to my video file, and then you can see that it adds this path here to my screen. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, because I can see the cursor is really small down here, so I'm going to come over to this right-hand panel, and I'm going to increase the size of the cursor so that everybody will be able to see it easily. And then as I play through this timeline, you can see as I move the playhead that it moves the cursor over to the right-hand side. And of course, you can customize this to give it any curve that you want, to have it land anywhere that you want. So for example, if I wanted it to land right here on this gray part of the card, and then again, if I go back and I hit play, then you're going to see it comes in there. So of course, in this particular case, I would want to grab this little node up here on the top left, and then I would actually move it out of screen. So then I can have the animation coming in like this. This is just the very tip of the iceberg with this. You can also use this if you have a screenshot and you didn't do an actual screen recording. You can use this to where you can create the cursor path to where it will look like it's a screen recording and your mouse is moving around and all of that using this specific tool. I'm just showing you this option on just a raw video file so you can see that you can literally use it on anything. Now,
so dealing with the cursor, a couple of things that they've done. So when you do a lot of screen recording, we often get really sloppy with our cursor. As you're explaining something in any video, you're moving your cursor around. Look, I'm doing it like you can see me doing it. You're often moving your cursor around on the screen all the time as you're doing things, looking, hunting for menus, etc. So when you're doing a tutorial video where the cursor is a part of it and you want to draw the viewer's eye to a certain menu or a certain location on the screen, the cursor is a great tool for that because they're looking for where you're clicking and all of those sorts of things that are happening. Now, in the past in Camtasia, you could make the cursor bigger on screen and you could put some effects around it, things like radiating buttons, or often people will use that little yellow halo around it so that you can see it. Actually, I think Nick was using that in the little video that he just did. But it's still, anytime you jerk the mouse around, the cursor is going to move with it. The new version of Camtasia deals with the cursor as an entirely separate video layer, effectively, with the track, with the path that it's on, you being able to adjust the different points on the track and adjust where it's going. So you can smooth out your cursor animation. If you've kind of wiggled it from one side of the screen to the other, you can take all of that out and you can determine where and when it ends and where it rests. But another huge difference is they have changed the representation of the cursor on screen that we see in the screen capture into a vector-based graphic. In other words, we can make it as big as we want, and it's still going to maintain its visual integrity. It's not going to get all pixelated like the old cursor did. The old cursor in Camtasia, when we made it bigger, it would get pixelated. So we were limited by the size that we would make the cursor. So this might seem like a very subtle thing and a very small thing, but I can tell you, as a person who basically builds my business on explaining what's happening on a computer screen, giving me control over the cursor and what you're looking at with where the cursor is drawing your eye is a big plus that is going to increase the quality of the tutorial content that I create and that other people like me create significantly. So this is a big deal. It's, even though it's a small little thing. So that's the cursor. That's the cursor. All right. Any questions on it? Oh, Nancy's asking. She loves the little circle. I'll put it up. She loves the little circle that Screencast-O-Matic shows around her cursor when I'm showing something. Yeah, so that's completely editable now, or always has been in Camtasia. You can adjust the size, the color, and you can adjust whether it's a magnifying glass or whether it's just a highlighted circle that is slightly opaque, or it's a, what are the other ones they have? Oh, the other one is you can make the whole screen dim except for the area of light around the cursor. So you've got those sorts of features built into Camtasia. Yeah, Camtasia is the bomb when it comes to managing the cursor. Let's take a look now at, oh, I love this one. These are the new libraries. So just so you know, libraries are collections of assets that Camtasia ships with. And Camtasia ships with, and we're talking about things like lower thirds, or we're talking about animated titles, or we're talking about little graphical features like arrows pointing to things. The video that I just showed, in my video, there was a little circle that went around something, those sort of animated circles. Again, these are assets that help you explain what's happening on the screen more effectively. And Camtasia's always had a good collection, and TechSmith has a resource which allows us to download more templates and more assets over time. But and maybe it's just because we've been using it for so long, but the current collection of assets are sort of pedestrian, I think. Maybe I've just been with them too long. There's over 1,000 new assets in the new version of Camtasia, and they are really exciting. I don't, the other guys on here who, sorry, I'm saying guys because I think it's only men who have tried out the new version of Camtasia here in our room that I recognize. I don't know how much time you all spent playing with the new assets, but I spent a ton of time playing with them. So let me show you quickly what they look like now, just to give you a sample of what the new assets are in the libraries. Those new assets are just killer. And I mean, things like, you saw the countdown timer. You might think that countdown timers aren't a big deal, but I got to tell you, when I've needed a countdown timer, I've spent hours looking on different clip media sites that I belong to find the timers, but they're all video based. They're all based in a video, which means that you have to find the right length timer in order to make it work. With these countdown timers, you drag the asset onto the screen. And if it's a 10-second countdown timer that you've put on the screen, but you need 34 seconds, you grab it on the timeline, stretch it out to 34 seconds, and it counts down from 34 seconds. They're dynamic. They're brilliant. So these are little touches that are just going to make difference. And as a creator, what looking at these assets does is it allows your imagination to set free. And when you are trying to tell a story of anything that you're trying to showcase in a video, all of a sudden these assets, you realize, oh, I could use this asset to tell it better, and you get excited about it. And it allows you to feel like you're doing a better job of explaining, but it also it just kind of validates the work that we put in as well. I really like those new assets. They've done just a terrific job. Okay, I know we have questions. One person asked, we might have left you with the impression that in order to use the new version of Camtasia, you have to buy an Audiate license. No, you can do it. The only thing that you can't do if you don't license Audiate is the text-based audio editing. Everything that I did up until last week in Camtasia, you could still do, as well as the new features that we're showing now, other than text-based editing. Camtasia is a fine standalone package. Should we move on to the next one?
Yep.
So in our room here, we've got Gord. And Gord, he also released his video on the day of the first yesterday. And so let's let Gord explain some of those we're going to talk about some of the more cinematic features now. And Gord's going to talk about some of the lighting features. So take it away, Gord.
Now let's take a look at the spotlight visual effect. I really like this one because it's quite powerful. Here's a clip I have here. You can see with the dust blowing, it almost looks like, it could be a place on Mars or something, or dunes or something to that effect. So what I'm going to do is first add the spotlight effect. I toss it on, but I'm going to do it on another copy of it, so I have it right here. Automatically, you see that the default, by adding the spotlight, has already got certain defaults for opacity, brightness, and focus, and easing is at 0. But you can see already this sort of darkened corners. But watch what happens. You have this ability with this line to show where the light's going to cast. And we can take it from the top end, move it all around. So watch what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to just undo, get back to the default. What I want to do now is make this side darker, but I also want to change the color. I want to make it look like it's maybe a place from Mars. So I'm going to go into orange color range. Gonna get it maybe into the reddish orange territory. Let's see. There. That kind of looks Mars-ish to me a little bit. Now I want this to be dark, so I'm going to change the focus of the light to now be more about sort of like to the other side of that. So you see how this foreground part is kind of dark, but now I can play with the focus of that light to make it even darker. So I don't want it that dark. I still want it to be there in the foreground. I want the light to go up a little higher, so I'll move that. Maybe there. And brightness we can play with. So let's see how that looks. Very powerful.
Gord just showed one of those features. When we think of high-end video editors, we think of Adobe they think of Adobe, we think of Apple's Final Cut. And while I would not say that Camtasia is the equal of those applications as far as for doing cinematic type work, it's not that far behind. And the main things the main features, more and more of those are available. And I'm going to show you some more cinematic effects in just a few moments. But down to even having the ability for us to incorporate color lookup tables, which is how they do color correction. So you, if you are fairly serious about creating that sort of video, Camtasia is an option. It's not what it's designed for out of the gate. It's designed as a screencasting tool, as a screen recording, and the kind of the nature of it and the tools that are built in are designed to make the screen one of the star members of your video. But they are increasingly adding all of these other kind of higher end effects, and there's a bit of a two-edged sword to that, if the truth be known. Obviously you can do great work, but it can really slow you down. because you start playing with all of the different those different features, and you can end up kind of lost with it. And now Gord, by the way, Gord now has a second career. Apparently you can do meditation videos. The people were in love with the sound of your voice, the deep sonorous tones of Gord Isman. There we go. The spoken word. He's gonna be like a beatnik poet. We're all gonna be snapping for Gord soon. All right.
Will those visual effects potentially add artifacts?
I don't know. I guess it's always potential. There's always a potential that they're going to have a little glitch in rendering, but I'm not positive.
Marilee's asking, wow, Gordon is in a separate frame. Is this all done in Camtasia?
Yeah. So Gord just windowed himself. So when you record a video in Camtasia, you record the screen and you can record your camera at the same time and the audio, and then you can position that video anywhere inside of the frame. And Gord was using that. That's a technique that live streamers use. That's a technique that I use all the time in all of my videos. Most of the content creators I know use at some point that feature of having your face on the frame at the same time as whatever it is you're showcasing.
Any idea if TechSmith plans to add hotkeys to add effects to clips like in ScreenFlow? I find drag and drop slows me down.
Yeah, as far as interface goes, one, and I don't know if this is the reason, but ScreenFlow is Mac only, and I don't know if that because of that reason they've taken a slightly different approach on the user interface and how the user interface works with the computer with the software. But ScreenFlow does have a little bit more of an organic feel as you're editing. I felt the same way about Camtasia when I started using it, that the drag and drop or having to go to the menus constantly slowed me down. That was until I started to use this and using the Stream Deck. I programmed all of my shortcut keys as buttons on the Stream Deck, and now I find editing in Camtasia super fast. So, if you're going to be on Camtasia a lot, think about putting those shortcuts, those things, and not worrying about if there's keystrokes applied. You can do it inside of with the Stream Deck. All right, let's get to the next video. I think I've only got one more. Yeah, and this is back to Nick Nimmin. And Nick we're gonna be moving into more of the cinematic effects.
Another interesting thing they've added to Camtasia 2022 is gradients. So when it comes to the gradients, you can just grab these and you can pull them on to your timeline. And when you do that, you can see how it just kind of changes the look of what it is that you're showing. So if you wanted to use this for emphasis on something, or if you wanted to use it as a pattern interrupt of some kind, of where you had your screen recording going and then you had this come on and everything kind of shakes a little bit and then it goes back to the normal footage, you can use this for that type of thing in order to just take that moment to grab people's attention. They also have animated versions of these overlays, like all kinds of really cool stuff in this library. Another thing they've added to Camtasia 2022 is over 30 new transitions. So they have already had a great library of transitions, but they've added more to give you more to work with. Now, the next one I want to bring your attention to is in the visual effects area, and this is called blend mode. This is another new feature inside of Camtasia 2022. This can also be applied to video content. And this is really cool because you can do some really fun things with this. So for example, if I wanted to make it look like I was sitting in front of the camera looking at my computer screen, then all I would have to do is put the blend mode on the video file like I just did. Then I would come down to the screen recording. I would come up to the properties over on the top right-hand side, and I would flip the screen by 180 degrees. And then if I was looking, it would look like I was interacting with the screen because you can see through the video footage and see the screen recording happening underneath. So you can use this in a lot of creative ways as well to help make your videos a lot more interesting.
So I lost 2 hours playing with that. Feature. I tried to figure out a new way of doing my demos, and I tried to figure out, instead of having my face in the corner, can I have my face in the background like I'm looking at the computer screen, kind of like a Minority Report where you can see everything happening there. It didn't work, but I spent 2 enjoyable hours that I'm never getting back playing with that idea. But that just gives you some of the ideas of some of the new features that they've got. There are other features that I haven't got videos on, such as there are new device frames for allowing us to show our iPhone screen or an iPad screen more effectively. There are what are some of the other ones? There was one other one, I can't remember what. There's a UI kit where you can create user interface. So if you watch it in my short little tutorials where I do the little 1-minute tutorial and I type in a little thing that looks like a Google search, I spent a lot of time building that animation. They've got them now built in, so you can just do quick search fields. That sort of stuff is all built in there. They've got channel kits for YouTubers, so the fancy subscribe buttons and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's 1,000 of these new assets that are available as well. So Robin's asking, could I create intros and outros with us? All the time. I create them. And the cool thing about Camtasia is you create an intro that you want to use over and over again, and you store it in a library, so it's available to you all the time to reintroduce. If you take a look at my video on where I show the video that I released yesterday on these new features, I'll show you how those kind of intros work. And I do it with a transition, that little sliding transition that you see me use occasionally. I use that over and over again, and it just takes me seconds to apply. I just change the text, and it's off and running.
Does the new version allow for reversing video cut play?
Don't know. I think you can reverse video. I think it's just a filter.
How do I make video with something like a green screen if I don't have a green screen?
Well, you don't. I mean, some of the video packages will eliminate the background, but they aren't going to do as good a job as a green screen can. So if you're happy with the green screen effect of a zoom, where you're in a call and you can see how, you know, it kind of tears on all the edges as you're moving around, you could use something like a zoom for that. But if you don't have a green screen, you know, you've got to have a solid color
background
that can be keyed out if you want to do that.
Yeah. Can I export? Oops, hold on. Sorry, I hit the wrong button here. Can I export the intro and outro to other programs?
So let's be clear. You can export, you can output it as a video, which can then be used in other programs. That you can incorporate into other video editors and bring them in. You're not going to be able to export the timeline and have it an editable piece where you've got the individual components, like say you could do with layers in an Adobe product. You're not going to be able to have it in its individual pieces, but you will be able to export the video as just an MPEG video and be able to import it into something else.
Does it have the ability to do a trapezoidal resize so you can do a video like an on-air replacement?
You can adjust the canvas size of the video, and the output of the video is completely user definable. So you can decide exactly what video you want to output. So if you want to output it, that's designed, you know, if you want to output it so that the video perfectly fits in an iPhone, if you want to do like TikTok type videos, you can do that. It's got to be equal size. You can't do unequal angles. Like it's got to be a square or a rectangle format for output.
What is a Stream Deck?
Stream Deck is a little macro tool. It's a keyboard shortcut tool that we have, has programmable keys on it, so that you can use it to launch applications or to eliminate keystrokes. So it's basically you map different keyboard effects to it. So it can be used for switching. If you have multiple cameras and you want to go from one camera to another, you set the buttons up in Stream Deck. If you want, I use it for all of my editing tools. So if I want to center my screen, if I want to do an insert edit, if I want to chop video, if I want to insert a marker in the video as I'm editing, it does all of that without me having to go on the main keyboard. So my hand is on the mouse, scrolling, and on the Stream Deck.
Does Audiette have background noise cancellation?
Yeah, it's got some. I don't know how good it is, but it does do some. It's got a reasonably good filter and compression package, and compressor package. Sorry.
Is the Stream Deck on DottoTech Amazon store?
I think so.
Thank you for asking. I think that's it. That's it for questions, because people have been great about answering ones.